I want to pick up a few points made in the comments. Sean Hickey says Giles Brandreth wrote it first in his book about the Queen, published soon after her death. This is about Boris Johnson's indiscretion in revealing that the Queen had bone cancer. Now, it's one thing for Giles Brandreth to gossip, which of course one would expect. He is a gossip and he's very entertaining. It's a different matter when it's when it's one of the ex-prime ministers writing in a memoir, because as prime minister he would receive medical briefings about the palace, and so he would have the actual information in front of him. Boris's indiscretion is very interesting from a number of points of view. First of all, it tells you that Boris has no sense of respect for privacy. He is simply out to make a few quid with an indiscreet book. That's one thing. But secondly, of course, he contradicts the official cause of death, which was recorded on Her Majesty's death certificate. And that questions the integrity of the doctor who was certifying her death, and who I believe was part of the team looking after her. Now, that's quite serious. So it's one thing to gossip, it's another thing to say something with actual knowledge. And there are things which I'm afraid Boris knows, which he should never reveal. That is part of the job. That is what comes with the job. And there was plenty that other prime ministers could have said and didn't say in their memoirs. Even Cameron, and even Thatcher, Blair, and John Major, of course, who's been very cautious. John Major has mostly written about his father. Excellent book, by the way. And it's simply wrong. Boris is wrong. As for Tony Tully, who says, hold on there, it's Honest Bob you're talking about, and then a giggle, where I'm talking about only 2 left in the Conservative race. Well, yes, Jenrick has disgraced himself to such an extent, I think he surely rules himself out. And Kemi Badenoch, in talking about the naughtiest thing that she did, was a criminal act that, thankfully, because of the indulgence and the kindness of Harriet Harman, was not pursued by the police as a criminal act. It didn't lead to her arrest, but it could have done. It's certainly fiddling with somebody else's computer, hacking into somebody else's computer, is criminal activity. For her to admit this as an act of naughtiness is an example that is not appropriate for the leader of one of the 2 major political parties and the potential prime minister. I would say the same thing about someone like Mr. Gove, who I believe had acknowledged that he had taken Class A drugs. That, again, should rule him out of any possible leadership race. It doesn't mean that he's not an interesting man. It doesn't mean that he's not an interesting person, or a figure who might impart advice and might have interesting political observations. As indeed might Jenrick, as indeed might Kemi Badenoch. But as leadership material, they are ruled out. And it's time to pay the piper. As for payment, £6,000 out of 100-odd thousand. Well, if Keir Starmer has paid 6, that's 95,000 or so left that he's got to pay. And it's what are we going to hear about next? Once somebody exposes their character like that, that is their character. And Keir Starmer has exposed a character which is less than worthy. No, Exotic Doll says, I once stayed in a Paddington hotel and was horrified to get 3 bites, which is a classic bedbug sign. I complained to the manager, who laughed in my face. When I got back to Lincolnshire, I rang and politely emailed photos and asked a refund. He said no. I only asked for a refund for the stay, not compensation. That was it. I was furious, so I emailed Westminster Council the same photos, and next the council did an inspection. The owner got a warning to take immediate improvements in the kitchen or face warnings. So even if you cannot prove the bed bug, still email the council, as they can turn up and inspect it, and in my case, find other problems to serve warnings. Absolutely. Absolutely. And my next email and my next post on this subject, I'm sure, will name the hotel. But there we are. Anyway, thank you very much for the comments. I always appreciate them.